last chance to prepare for the big dance. This is final practice for tomorrow's 51st running of the Daytona 500. The weather is decidedly different from what we've had through most of Speed Week. There is a heavy overcast and it's about 67 degrees, a light breeze, and the forecast is for cloudy weather all through this practice session. Now, it will get up to 77 degrees later today, and that's about the expected high temperature tomorrow for race day. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Daytona. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, and Darrell Waltrip with you for final practice for the Daytona 500. Darrell, you've learned everything you can here now for a week and a half, and this is your last chance to tune on it and get it right.
Yeah, and this is dress rehearsal. This is when you've got the mirror where you want it, you got the seat where you want it, you got the wheel where you want it, all your pedals, everything you've been complaining about, you better have it right. Because the next time these cars go on the racetrack, it'll be under the race conditions, and you don't want to hear that driver complain about, I meant to tell you, we've been here
right.
10 days.
Right.
You should have told me already.
And Larry, now it's crunch time. No matter when you put that race engine in for the 500, no matter what you've done to tweak on this car all week long, now it really is crunch time to get the car right.
Well, it is, and you don't want to just sit here and just chalk up mile after mile, because as you mentioned, per the NASCAR rules for Speed Weeks, these guys were allowed one engine change after the dual races on Thursday, but the engine had to be in by this practice session. So the engine guys, they want to really spend some time making sure they have tuned that thing perfectly, looking at fuel mileage, looking at distribution, and oh, by the way, we have had another backup car added to the list. Kevin Harvick, the 29 car, got into the wall late in that practice yesterday, so those guys know in this hour and a half of that 29 car, they have a lot of work to do.
I don't suppose that backup car happens to be the Budweiser shootout winning car, does it?
You know what? I never could get anybody to tell me that this morning.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, we'll put our best man on it. Speaking of which, let's go down to the garage of the pole sitter for the 500. Here's Matt Yoakum.
Mike, you can definitely feel the intensity level building all throughout Speed Weeks. Today, talking to several crew members here in the garage, it's now pegged for pole sitter Martin Truex Jr. Their agenda, it's a combo platter. Number one, spotter Joey Meyer, who's a second-generation racer. He's high atop the grandstand. His agenda, keep Martin and that car safe out on the racetrack. Two close calls yesterday. The ignition box failed while he was at the front of the pack. Everybody had to dive for cover. Then another issue, he was pushed up close to the wall. So he's trying to keep that car safe so they don't have any issues in having to possibly go to a backup with that pole-winning car. For the crew chief, Bono Mannion, dial in that race car. Martin Truex told me they're very close to having that feel he's looking for in the race car. So they're not really sure how long they'll actually run this final practice. Now let's go across the garage area to Steve Burns.
Thank you, Matt. And to answer the question the men posed upstairs just a moment ago, Kevin Harvick personally told me, yes, in fact, this is his Budweiser shootout car. They do have to go to the pack, but remember, in 2007, he won the Great American Race from a starting position of 34.
Well, thank you, Steve, because this then comes as no surprise. Earlier in the week, Jamie McMurray was the victim of someone else's misfortune, had to go to a backup car, which just happened to be the car that led the white flag lap of the Budweiser shootout, and he was pretty happy about it. So I saw that little gleam in Harvick's eye when he was telling us yesterday, well, we're either going to fix this or go to the backup. And it seemed like that may have been an easy decision to make.
There you see this racetrack, 2.5 miles in length, 31 degrees of banking in the corners. The front stretch, 3,800 feet. Down that long back stretch, a super stretch, 3,000 feet.
That's our Old Spice track description.
I think that 34 starting spot is the worst starting spot for a guy to come from and win the race.
Correct.
That's
correct.
So he's accustomed to doing that. He started in the back of the Budweiser shootout and won the race.
Joey Logano had an interesting practice yesterday. He went out, shook down the car, and then Kyle Busch hopped in it and came back with a whole lot of feedback for Joey, who spent that part of the session up on top of the hauler being tutored by his other teammate, Denny Hamlin. So let's see how the 18-year-old rookie from Connecticut fares here.
And as we've been pointing out all week long, if you just look at the miles per hour in this tight draft, 191, 192 miles per hour at the end of that 3,000-foot backstretch. But if you notice in the corners, wide open, the miles per hour or the RPM, it doesn't move around a whole lot.
But I still can't understand why has a tendency to work the wheel the way he does. When Kyle was in the car, he wasn't doing that, and I'm not sure what the difference is. I'm obviously driver style, but he just works the wheel more.
Darrell, I want to propose a question to you because I've been thinking a lot about that this week. Do you think that comes from so many years of running short track cars and the type of cars he's been driving, maybe on a bias ply tire? Do you tend to maybe move a wheel a little more driving a bias ply tire?
Well, a bias ply tire is certainly more forgiving. It's like a big old bowl of jelly, so you can work the wheel and lean on it a little bit more. It very well could be. I'm not sure what's going on.
It's interesting to watch different style. Cale Yarborough liked to put a lot of wheel in the car. You could see Cale really working in there when right next to him David Pearson would be holding a pretty wheel. And those were bias ply tires then, but certainly a difference in driver style and what kind of feel he wants from the car.
Well, here's another three-time champion. Let's see what he looks like.
His hands almost just move with the car going through the dips, through the corner.
He's not doing that rocking that Joey seems to do with the wheel. See how steady he is with the wheel, and Joey rocks on the wheel. Just not sure why. And Mike, to follow up, all those spotters and all those crew chiefs that said be smooth. If the jacking on the wheel was a good thing, they wouldn't be telling you to be smooth.
Quickest lap of this practice so far, Reed Sorensen in Richard Petty's car. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup final practice is brought to you by Toyota. For the latest Toyota racing info, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward. By Old Spice, the official deodorant of NASCAR. And by Ask.com. Get the answers to all your racing questions at Ask.com, the official search engine of NASCAR. Here's a question from Ask.com, NASCAR's official search engine. When was NASCAR founded? Get the answer now at Ask.com, where NASCAR fans get their answer.
Mike, Larry, and I were laughing this morning coming over here. We were talking about Dale Sr. and Jeff Gordon, I think, has got the same attitude that Dale Sr. used to have down here. Larry, what did he used to tell you?
Yeah, I mean, you even take the year '98, we won the 500. Every practice session, he would just lead a pack around here for 20 or 25 laps. And I'd say, Dale, do we not need to get back in a pack a little bit just to see what our car's like? Don't plan on being back in the pack.
I'm really liking it. I'd like to come in.
And normally he backed it up.
Pressure's good.
Jeff Gordon agrees.
I think that's what.
It's like, I'm just not sure what we're learning here. Well, I tell you that Darrell and I were also talking this morning. That 24 car looks like he's going to bring it in. He was just talking to crew chief Steve Letarte. That group looks solid coming into Speed Weeks. You know, they won their dual race the other day, and I see a lot of fire in Jeff Gordon and that whole race team.
What I like about that 24 car is it never moves. A lot of these cars are bouncing around, moving, and that thing stays as solid as a rock all the way through the corner.
Way left. That's good. F4. Looks like we're getting ready to maybe have some trouble. It's getting pretty wild. At 4 laps left. Get around that 19. He's slower than a goat.
How slow is a goat?
Let's ask Hammond. He knows.
Yeah. But, you know, the thing I was going to make mention there, Carl Edwards evidently had a little bit of a vibration. It just seems like Darrell and Jeff Hammond and I talk about this a lot. The Roush Fenway cars at the restrictor plate racetracks where you work on trying to make everything roll free, drive line and all, they end up with a lot of vibration issues at Daytona and Talladega.
We've heard that, yes.
Coming out of turn 2, that may have been David Stremme way up high and out of shape here. Let's see. Whoa, yes it was.
Yikes.
And yes he was.
Boy, he was very, very lucky there.
He had the dust flying.
Keep running, please. All right, we're good. We're done.
That's where one of the big ones in the truck race happened last night. The new Camping World Truck Series. So you still see a bit of speedy dry around the track although they blew the track a couple of times last night late and this morning. See a little bit of residue.
Matt Kenseth in the 17 car. He's scheduled to start 39th, but he's one of the cars that will have to go to the rear of the field. This is a backup car that he's in. He did practice it yesterday, though.
Steve.
Mike, just wanted to update you on Kevin Harvick. He's made his first run in the garage now. Todd Berrier, the crew chief, leaning in through the window net. Kevin said on his way in, car's a little bit too loose. I need a little more rear grip.
And there's no question, even though this is the Budweiser shootout car that Kevin Harvick's running, just like Jamie McMurray in the 26, after he had that crash on Wednesday in practice. This racetrack is probably significantly different in characteristics from the Budweiser shootout. We've had a lot of laps put down on this racetrack, including the truck race last night.
Plus, we've said time and time again this week, you want a car, a setup for the Daytona 500. You got to run 500 miles Sunday, tomorrow. So you want a car that's a little bit easier to drive, a little more comfortable than what you've had to do in these little short sprint races we've had.
Now, right alongside Junior, that Guitar Hero number 8, Eric Almirola, spoke with him last night, and he said they didn't practice yesterday because they didn't think there would be big packs on the track, but they would be out in both sessions today.
Window net out here on the Hornish's car.
That's a backup car for Sam, but they did as well. They got out yesterday and practiced this car. Sam had issues in the dual races on Thursday.
Only 6 of the 43 starters did not practice, including Almirola and 2 of the Gibbs cars, Hamlin and the Kyle Busch number 18.
Now, as simple as the Hornish window net being out is today, what if that was tomorrow? And what if there's some issue with the window net? I mean, you know, so you find out today, and those are the little bitty things that crew chiefs, drivers, they can't anticipate.
And it's the little bitty things that will bite you. It's not the big things.
Well, think back to my brother, Michael Waltrip. Started the race the other evening, and he didn't have the transponder on the car. Car is perfect. Everything's ready to go. Got to put the little box on the back.
I think you'll see it right here. That's the 77 car right there.
Oops. Popped right out.
They stretch those window nets pretty tight these days. As you see Jimmy Johnson giving a hand signal. Look at his window net there on the right. Using them as an aerodynamic aid so that the wind thinks it's a solid window there. Those nets used to flop around all over the place until people started going to the wind tunnel and learning things.
Driver can get it out, but he can't get it back in.
Floppy window net's bad.
All of the fastest laps in this session were set within the first 5 laps. Usually lap 1, 2, or 3 has been each driver's quickest. Overcast day here in Daytona. Greg Biffle up there on the high side leading the pack around.
And you can tell by those speeds and the lap times there, this track is fast this morning. It's got a lot of grip in it. Cars will run fast.
And that's something that these crew chiefs and engineers will have to take a long, hard look at tonight and in the morning. They have the information from the practices yesterday. They have information from the dual races on Thursday. They'll have the information from this hour-and-a-half practice, and they'll almost have to marry all that information together and look at the weather tomorrow before they make the final decisions on how they want to start this 500-mile race.
You know, if you got a perfect car, you want to pull the highest possible gear you can to make the most speed you can. But if you anticipate, and I do, that you're going to be in traffic, you're going to be in and out of the throttle a lot, and maybe the car's going to get off a little bit, you got to lift every now and then. You want the lowest possible gear you can pull to help you overcome having to let up off the gas.
And you know, they have 2 options. They have a 364 or a lower gear. Remember, the higher numbers of lower gear, 370. Daryl and I were talking the other day. I talked to several crew chiefs. Even though the car runs a little faster with the higher 364 gear, and the 370 gear puts it across the power band, most of the drivers like that 370, that lower gear. They like the way it feels.
Well, I always like the low gear because I always call it my passing gear. You know, if you can get out of the throttle, set a guy up, and then matter wide open, and you got enough power to get back by, that's a good thing.
Clint Boyer among those who changed rides for 2009, but unlike most of those who did, Boyer stayed within the same team. Richard Childress Racing. Casey Mears now in the 07. Boyer moves to the 33.
There's Casey Mears, the 07, the black car. Still hadn't got all the decals put back on that thing. He had a little trouble in the dual race, but they elected to repair that race car, and they've been gradually working on it between practice sessions.
You know, we had a little tire problem here in the qualifiers the other day, and I read this morning where Goodyear has now gone and analyzed all the tires and realized that they think all those tires came from the same batch.
Oh.
And some of the numbers are matching up, and so they pulled that particular number of code of tire and replaced it with new ones.
That's a good precaution. We have a new race procedure for the Daytona 500, one that will continue throughout the season. Previous to 2009, if a restart occurred within the last 10 laps, the field would be lined up single file, lead lap cars to the front, everyone else to the rear. Now they've extended that window to 20 laps. Single file restart within the last not 10 but 20 laps. How, if at all, is that going to change the game?
Well, let me tell you how it's going to change it. Talked to Chad Knaus yesterday on our NASCAR Performance Show about that very rule change. Chad feels strongly that one of the reasons they did that was to discourage a car from just staying out at the end of the race, because he knows he's a lead lap car and would get to go to the front of the pack. When you open that window up, it kind of makes you have to think, gosh, do I have good enough tires to do this? You know, so there's probably other reasons, Mike, but I know that's one reason that Chad felt that it was a rule that was put out there.
Well, I actually think it would discourage you from going in the pits. I mean, if you're single file and you got to start way back there, I don't know if I want to give up my, you know, if you're at the lead, up at the front, and now you're going to be single file, I don't know.
I agree, Darrell, but if you only got to hang on for 8 laps, that's a whole lot better than if you got to hang on with those old tires for 18.
Well, I think everybody would stay out. I don't know if anybody would want to go in and. Yeah.
You know where I think it's going to make a big difference, that I like it for sure, the short tracks and the road courses, because now those guys can race for the win with 20 or less laps to go. They don't have to fight with lap down cars.
We're already single file on a road course, but certainly at Bristol, Martinsville, some of those places.
Well, we're single file on a road course, but now all the lead lap cars will get to go to the front with 20 or less laps to go.
Right.
There is one other change regarding restarts, and we'll talk about that when we come back. Bad day at the office for Ryan Newman. A right rear tire. Tony Stewart radioed in. Newman's tire just exploded, and you see it has really torn up not only Newman's car but that of his car owner, Tony Stewart. Let's show you what happened.
Oh boy.
Nose to tail.
Right in the middle of turn 2.
Just about time he starts off the corner. There she goes. Oh my goodness, that could have been so much worse.
Boy, it could have been real bad. There were a lot of cars coming at that 14 Tony Stewart.
I think Stewart might get away. He might be able to fix his car. It didn't look like he hit anything that hard.
Now watch as Newman's car goes sideways. Look at the fenders, already exploded.
Yeah. Wow. Now Larry, didn't he have he had a right rear problem in the qualifier, didn't he?
Well, this is what I was just looking at. The 39 car had run 10 laps. You see him right there again in the middle of turn 2 with his teammate Tony Stewart and the 14 behind him. The tire just comes apart, nowhere for Stewart to go. Yes, Ryan Newman, who qualified 3rd a week ago, on lap 16, I think it was actually lap 13 in the dual races, had a right rear tire come apart, and this is a backup car for the 39 car, so there's no question they're going to have to go to a 3rd car.
And most of the time when you get to the 3rd car, it's not a Daytona car. It's an intermediate car, some car that you didn't anticipate having to race.
Now I see Tony Stewart's backup car coming out of the trailer. Ryan Newman was already going to have to go to the rear of the field for the Daytona 500. This means Tony, if they indeed are going to the backup, he'll go from 5th to the rear of the field.
Ryan radioed in with just 2 words. It's junk.
And there's no question. There's no fixing that car, I don't think.
I think I take a look at Stewart's car. He might be able to fix his if he wants to. I just don't think I'd want to start the Daytona 500 in a questionable car.
Well, and Stewart finished 3rd in the Budweiser shootout. So does he have that car to fall back to?
You would certainly think so, yeah. I think Tony would have a good car, and I'm not going to say that the 39 does not. Normally what a lot of teams will do when you're a multi-car team is each individual team will have a backup car, and then you'll have maybe a third backup that any team could possibly go to. Now that's the 39 hauler right there, and if you see, it has actually an Office Depot. There we go, a third backup for both teams in their hauler.
Well, Ryan's used his too, so.
This is Tony's backup right here.
And this is a car that's been on track and had a little bit of contact earlier in the week.
If you notice, they're no longer scurrying to get that car out. I think, like Darrell said, they want to evaluate that 14 car first.
I don't know that it's crinkled up a little bit here on the left side. But
yeah, it's got more damage than I think we thought.
Even if they fix it, they'd never get it back on track for practice. So why not go with the piece you know runs well that's sitting up there in the truck?
All I can think about is this guy in this booth next to us in 2000. I think his car looked that way. Dale Jarrett I'm pointing to, and I think he went on to win the 500 the next day with a car that looked that way on Saturday.
Crunch time at Daytona for Ryan Newman. A tire explodes, and he's back in the garage. Tough day at the office for Stewart-Haas Racing. They've now employed 5 different cars, getting ready for the Daytona 500, and we are still about an hour of practice away from race day. Very rough week for Tony's teammate Ryan Newman. Thursday, in his Gatorade dual race, he was pulling out to pass a slower car and didn't quite get straightened out before he got an assist from David Rudiman, an intended assist that Rudiman said it was his fault. He should have waited until Ryan got a little more squared up. Ryan's wheels were still turned to the right, and that's where he went, hard into the wall. And not happy with Mr. Rudiman. And just now, a right rear tire explodes on Newman's 39 right there. And he takes a wild ride. Steve Burns.
Mike, with Ryan Newman, and Ryan, you're going to have to be Army strong here. A lot of adversity during speed weeks. Talk about what the strategy is now with this race car.
This one's junk. We just right rear tire exploded in the middle of 1 and 2 there, and it gave me 100 yards of sign that it might. I mean, it started just a very, very slightest vibration, and I was getting ready to come in, and it was too late. I mean, just unfortunate. We took out my teammate, and I don't even know who else was caught up in it, but just disappointed in the situation Goodyear's put us in.
How about the backup to the backup car? Do you know much about it?
I think it's our California backup car, so it's not a defined speedway car. Fortunately, there's not that much difference anymore, so it's just a bad situation. Don't really want to be in it. It's sort of hard to talk about it, but we'll do what we can with this U.S. Army Chevrolet team, and people at Stewart-Haas have got a challenge today.
Thank you, Ryan.
So the defending champion of the Daytona 500 will be driving his 3rd car of the week come Sunday, and hopefully he'll get a chance to run some practice laps first.
But Ryan is absolutely right. You know, if you go back to our old car, there was a significant difference in a car you would run at California Speedway, Auto Club Speedway, and what you would run here. But other than maybe some underbody stuff that NASCAR lets you work with, on the top side, there's just not a lot of difference. And Darrell, I go back in the day, there's a many a time I wish by the time we actually got to the 500, I had an old downforce car that we'd run at a place like California.
Yeah, and now at this point in the week, I mean, it's not a real big problem to get that California car out. That's still going to be a good car aerodynamically, setup-wise, not all that different. Should be fine, other than they're going through a lot of inventory.
And a lot of inspection fees. This is now Stewart-Haas Racing. Gene Haas and Tony Stewart are equal partners in this team. NASCAR does not charge the teams an entry fee. All the participants do have to buy credentials, and each car presented to go on the track has to go through an inspection process, and there is an inspection fee per car. And right now, the inspection bill for Stewart-Haas for this week is over $18,000.
Yeah, and you know, when you think about Tony and Ryan, that their weeks up until this point, it's been a tale of 2 tapes. Tony sat there and qualified 10th. He finished 3rd in the Budweiser shootout, finished 2nd in the dual race. He had a great week. Now, we've seen a lot of Ryan Newman's journey this week, and to add to that, he qualified 3rd on Sunday and then lost an engine in Wednesday's practice. He had to go to the rear of the dual field when that race started.
Well, you know, it's baptismal by fire. You know, you throw all this thing at a new organization, and it's not that new, but with a lot of new people, you find out how tough you are right quick. Army strong might be a good way to look at it.
I think that's a great way.
Steve had a good line there.
You know, Mike, I can't help but think we just saw Kyle Busch in the 18 car following his teammate Joey Logano, and as you pointed out early in the show, yesterday Kyle ran a significant amount of laps because Kyle in the 18 car did not practice, but Kyle ran that 20 car, so I'm sure he's watching it actually with some curiosity right now, considering he's got laps in that 20 car.
And he gave them great feedback. I mean, he drove the car enough laps to be able to tell them what it needed, what it was doing, and that should be a big plus for Joey.
Another in the new team collaborations this year, Petty Enterprises merging with Gillette Evernham. So what were the 9, 10, 19, 43, and 45 now contract down to 4 cars in what's termed as Richard Petty Motorsports. And Petty's signature 43 is on Reed Sorensen's car, and they have the fastest lap of this session. Steve?
Hey, Mike, back here in Jeff Gordon's stall, and he's signing a couple autographs. We'll see if we can slide in here. And Jeff, just want to check with you on your race car. You guys done for this practice, heading back out? How do you feel?
Man, I am really, really happy. You know, I didn't want to be out front there as much as we were. You know, want to get in behind some cars, which we started that practice. But I think, you know, we got a much cooler track today, and we tried some things for this morning, and the car just felt fantastic. So, you know, we put the race engine in. All that checks out to be good, and I think we're good to go. I mean, I haven't been this excited about a Daytona 500 and this DuPont Chevrolet team in a long time, and you know, I feel like this car is an equalizer. It's anybody's race out there, but I just feel like this team and all of Hendrick Motorsports has come very, very well prepared. So I know we've got all the pieces in place there. Now we just got to go out and execute them, and we showed what we could do on Thursday. Now we got to do it for 500 miles.
It was nice to see Ella Sophia in Victory Lane Thursday. Maybe we can see her there tomorrow.
I hope so. It was awesome having her there, and you know, to see her have a big smile on her face, you know, when it just changes the whole experience. And there's nothing better than pulling into Victory Lane and being able to see her and Ingrid.
You've got a lot of work to do. We'll let you go back to work.
Tell you what, I was watching his teammate. Here's Jimmy Johnson headed to the garage, and I think I know why. Because the last time he was down on the other end of the speedway, 1 and 2, let's watch this bad boy. She does a little dee-dah-do right there, and he didn't hit the fence, but he was headed for it. And he brought that thing right to the garage.
You know, Darrell, we have watched this ever since these cars unloaded Friday a week ago. If your car has a little bit of a tendency to either be a little tight, front's not turning, or the car's a little loose, when you get down in those dips, it just magnifies the problem.
Yeah. Well, the car loads and unloads, and whichever end's going to, you know, when it does that, if it's pushing, it's going to go up the hill, and if it's not, it's going to back up the hill. So,
but it's going.
It's going to go somewhere.
And then we've seen several push, then loose.
Oh yeah.
Saw John Andretti's father last night, Aldo, going out for a bite to eat. Former racer himself.
Tony Stewart heading over to hopefully get this number 14 Old Spice car out on the racetrack. Right now we're about halfway, getting close to halfway through this practice session. They still have about 50 minutes they can practice.
And you know, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead. You know, with Tony, this is business as usual. He's a driver. You know, the people that are really going to have, they're put in a bind, are the people that are back at the shop having to build these cars and repair these cars. Those are the guys that are anguishing over all this bad luck.
Yeah, it takes about half of a second to tear them up. It takes a while to build them back.
No change in the top 20 in this practice session. Final tune-up for tomorrow's 500. Tomorrow you're going to be spending a lot of time in front of the TV set. Race day on Speed. Then the Daytona 500 on Fox, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. NASCAR Victory Lane wraps it all up and talks to the winner, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Speed.
And you know, Mike, Larry, I've been in this dilemma before. You don't want to go practice. You'd like to cover it up and go to the beach. But if you do, that's where you'll be tomorrow before the race is over. So you got to get out there, and you got to get in these precarious situations so you know what you got. And it's a real dilemma. I mean, you really don't want to be out there doing what we're doing, but you got to.
Yeah, it's a catch-22.
And Newman and Stewart were not in a precarious position. They were drafting together about a half a car length apart. Nobody else right near them, but Newman's tire just let go, and Stewart had no place to go. Steve?
Mike, Dale Earnhardt Jr. just pulled his number 88 into the garage, and now early in practice he said the car was losing overall grip, but he just pulled in and told Tony Eury Jr. it's a little bit tight, a little bit loose, but overall this car is pretty good.
I watched him. Remember the trouble he had in getting in the pits in the qualifiers Thursday? Well, he's going to work on that a little bit this morning. Here he comes.
4.
There's his
3,
board.
2, 1.
Try to get it in the box this time, June.
Yeah, practice is not just at 190 miles an hour.
Yeah, but
it's that 40,
Thursday.
40 to 0.
Here's Thursday, and he just goes right on by.
Now, you saw the front brakes were locked. He called in and said he didn't have enough rear brake in the car to get stopped there.
Well, when you come down pit road, you pick up a lot of debris on your tires. And the tires are hot, and there's a lot of rubber and debris and sand. And so sometimes those tires just won't grip good enough to stop.
Here's Matt.
Mike, as an owner, Tony Stewart has just about experienced every type of situation that you can during Speed Weeks of 2009. Smoke, run us through the incident that forcing you to a backup as well as your teammate Ryan Newman again.
Just Goodyear right rear tire. So same thing everybody's been talking about all week. Same stuff that we always talk about every year, the failures that Goodyear have. So I think that's part of their marketing campaign is, the more we talk about it, the more press they get. But I think they forget that it's supposed to be in a good way, not a bad way.
Trying to look forward to the 500 as far as your backup car. Very productive in the Budweiser shootout.
Yeah. Just hope I get out in it, really. It's, we haven't got any time in it except when it was really cold and in the dark. So, we'll see.
All right, Tony, good luck.
Good that Stewart can manage a smile after just what's happened to his two race cars. Watch the 39 and 14. Those are the two Stewart-Haas cars. And here they go.
And Tony's frustration, yeah, it's about a tore race car, but it's about a car that he knew he had a shot at winning this 500 with.
You have failures, you talk about them.
Speed coverage of Sprint Cup final practice brought to you by Old Spice, official deodorant of NASCAR. By Toyota. For the latest Toyota racing info, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward. And by Bank of America, the official bank of NASCAR, where you can get your choice of NASCAR drivers on your check cards and credit cards. There's our Old Spice best 5-lap average. Fastest 5 consecutive laps. Matt Kenseth tops the list.
Matt Jeanette, pretty consistent, Matt is.
Looks pretty racy.
Yeah, he does.
Looks pretty racy.
Mark Martin up there. Reed Sorensen, the Busch brothers. And Jamie McMurray in his backup car.
We're seeing some dodges at the top of the charts as far as fastest lap and the 5-lap average. If you go back to qualifying, the fastest dodge was Reed Sorensen in the 28th position in that 43 car. It's almost a replay of a year ago. We had no dodges that were very quick, but when all the smoke had cleared, they ran 1, 2, and 5th in the Daytona 500.
But I tell you, if you want to pick I won't say a dark horse, but I guess he is, and you want to hedge your bet a little bit, put some money on that 26 car. I just got a really good feeling about Jamie McMurray this weekend. He's been good. If he can have some good racing luck and doesn't get caught up in something, he could be a guy that's going to be tough Sunday.
And as we mentioned, that's a backup car. He and Michael Waltrip got together in the final practice on Wednesday. Michael in the 55. You see Jamie right there in the 26 car. Both of those guys had to go to backup cars. I would say probably nobody wanted to go to a backup car, but if there's two guys that may be a little happy, That's one of them. Kevin Harvick's probably the other one in the 29.
And how'd they finish in that race?
1-2.
Oh.
Yeah, don't throw me in that backup car.
Don't you do it.
Matt.
Mike, about 40 minutes left in this final practice session, and getting an update on the 14 car. Darian Grubb feels like they'll have a good opportunity to get back out and turn some laps with this backup car, which was the shootout car. A lot of changing over will take place in the next 15 hours or so. If you look at this car, it's got the Old Spice colors. The 500 scheme is the Office Depot. But because everybody, small things like we've talked about, everyone trying to get all they can, all these decals have been clear coated over, so they'll have to change that over with a wrap for tomorrow's 500. They put in the seat inserts in the Hendrick carbon fiber seat that Stewart now runs here at Stewart-Haas Racing, and making a lot of small changes with this race car. But all those small little changes getting ready for the 500 setup does take a little bit of time, but they are confident they'll get this car back out so Smoke can turn some laps.
What's amazing, we talked about McMurray, we talked about Kevin Harvick. The top 3 finishers in the Budweiser shootout, they now have the same race car they ran in the Budweiser shootout, because remember, Tony finished 3rd in that race.
And you heard Matt mention a clear coat. Now, if you're going to California next week, you'll wrap a car and, you know, maybe it'll have some edges sticking up here and there, and you'll say no big deal. When you come to Daytona, that's another one of those little detail items where you may actually put the decals on the car and then paint over it with clear coat to make the car as slick as possible.
You know, we had so many neat stories this week, or had so many neat stories coming into Speed Weeks, and I think this is one of them right here. Jeremy Mayfield in the 41 car, a team that was put together just after the first of the year with Tony First, Cecil Tipton, and a host of others. They came down here. Their speed was not even close to being able to get them into the Daytona 500, but they raced their way in on Thursday, and he will start this 51st running of the 500.
He did, you know, he did what he had to do. He took 2 tires. He got up there in track position and was able to hang on, and that was a good call on their part. And what I was really impressed with, the 36 and the 41, both those cars handled really, really good. And I think that was the key to them getting in a race.
Handled well, had good power.
Yeah, they surprisingly. Where's that? Matt Kenseth's right in there. We in the DeWalt car.
Travis Kvapil having a little trouble holding on to the handle of his number 28.
Kenseth with the best 5-lap average, and the car looks fast. He's able to pass some people. Here comes his teammate Jamie McMurray in the 26 there. See what they can do together.
Now the sun has poked through, and the clouds that were heavy overcast when this session started will all be gone in about the next half hour. So we'll get sun, we'll get shade, get quite a variety of practice condition here.
And that's good. That's more information that they'll get to gather from these changing track conditions.
And let me tell you, you've been out there a little while, and the cars felt really, really good. The sun pops out, and you say, whoa, what y'all do to the car? Because it does change instantly.
I think I saw Denny Hamlin in the 11 car in this pack. He was in it a little. We're riding with him right here. Now he's run the most laps of anybody that I can see. He's run 28 laps. Jamie McMurray's actually run 29.
3 wide.
Well, you see that 17 car, Kenseth, down the bottom there, how it walked up the hill. That's something you really fight here coming off turn 2. Trying to keep that thing on the bottom and stay in the gas, and they lost a lot of momentum there.
You see Elliott Sadler in that 19 car. A lot of stories evolving around that operation. Mike, you mentioned the merger between George Gillette and Richard Petty, forming Richard Petty Motorsports, but mid-December, Elliott Sadler was told he would not be driving this 19 car in 2009. They went through some negotiations, some talks, a lot of meetings, and then it was announced in early January that he would be back. And Elliott had a great comment about that whole thing. He said, you know, the race team and myself needed a wake-up call, and that was probably the wake-up call to both of us, and it's probably going to make us better and stronger for 2009.
Yeah, he was going to leave the country. Intentionally, by the way.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that one.
He got married and they were going to go on their honeymoon. him when he couldn't find his passport, or he lost his passport.
He ended up getting the passport.
It wasn't because he lost his ride he was going to leave the country, although I sort of indicated.
Oh, bail us out here, Steve, will you please?
I'll do my best, Mike. Hey, just want to let you know Dale Earnhardt Jr. is done for this practice, as is Kyle Busch. He's already gone to the transporter. Steve, talk about what you guys ran through in this practice and why you decided to end early.
Well, after the 150s, we talked about where can we make the car better, and we tried a couple of things, and it drove better, and he said it's like driving down the highway. So, but he said he didn't have as much center to corner speed. So we went right back. We had everything set just like we raced in the 150, and we put it back there, and he was real happy. The speed was back, the car's comfortable, so I don't see any sense in it. Looking at tires and stuff, we went 22 laps on that set and didn't see any issues, and then Ryan had his problem at 10 laps. So it's hard to say that the balance of the car is going to change that on the tires that much.
Steve, it was fascinating yesterday to watch Kyle in the 20 car helping Joey Logano out. Did you guys learn anything back to help you?
Yeah, listening to him and seeing where they were with their setup was a little bit tighter than ours, and it's saying that Kyle fed back to Zippy and Joey and talked to Joey a little bit about the corner entries here. So he was pretty happy with knowing that our car would turn and knowing what they had. They went closer to us this practice, so it's good to help your teammate out. You know, I'm just sticking to that with all these guys on this car. They've done such an awesome job all week, and hopefully we can get that 500 win for M&M's, you know, and Toyota and everybody.
Good luck tomorrow, Steve.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, Steve. Both Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin have been mentoring Joey Logano, the 18-year-old rookie.
And remember, we showed earlier where Kyle Busch was following Joey around the racetrack.
When the sun beats down on Daytona International Speedway, the track loses grip. A lesson Joey Logano just learned the hard way.
Yep. See him coming off of, looks like turn 2. Just gets it up in the fence. Again, that right side of that car's got to be about worn out.
Yeah, because that's about the third time that's happened to him this week.
44 and a half back in the bottom.
Now, this is still the primary car. He has not had to go to a backup car despite several incidents. Of course, the Budweiser shootout was a different car than this one.
He had a great run in that dual race on Thursday. He ended up finishing in the top 5, and he is scheduled to start the 500 in the 9th position on the 5th row.
Let's go across the garage to Matt.
Martin Truex Jr. is climbed from his race car while the Bass Pro Shop crew members making a number of changes, including a sway bar change for the one car. Are you gaining on that field that you've been chasing?
I'm not. I don't think anyone is by the looks of them out there. The track's real slick. Everybody's just like hanging on. So we hadn't really hit on anything. That's about the worst we've been all week. So we're going back to square one.
You had a great description of going over the bumps. What is it?
Well, they're just so big, you know, and these cars with the little amount of front travel that they get, it's just so hard to keep them off the ground. And if you keep them off the ground, they're so rough that they just go up the racetrack. So we're still messing with bump stops and front springs and trying to get the right combination to make it go over the bumps, you know, decent, but not too harsh. It's tough.
Martin's explanation was it's kind of like being in a smaller boat going over a lot of wakes out in the ocean. Steve?
Matt, taking a look at the 20 car inside the garage here. The right side has been scraped hard. Heavy contact for Joey Logano. Car chief Jason Shapiro telling his mechanics check the tie rod and the ball joints on that right front corner.
I mean, that's the main thing you have to deal with. When you look there, I mean, they could get this side in good enough shape to get out there in about 5 minutes or so, and then, of course, fine-tune it after practice. They just got to make sure it hadn't been a trailing arm, the rear end, ball joints, tie rods, just what they're discussing.
There's only one guy that can fix these race cars, and that's the weatherman. If it's cloudy and overcast and cool, the cars drive great. As soon as the sun comes out, how long have we been here? We've been here for over a week now. Rubber buildup, oil, all that stuff. It's like he's had a little.
Sam Hornish
that was from earlier.
Close encounter.
That was from earlier, I think, Mike. But anyway, right now when the sun comes out, all that oil and rubber that's been building up on this racetrack, it makes this thing a bear, man.
And that's it. It's not so much the heat from the sun in the racetrack. It's that sun pulls any residual oil droplets, whatever, out of the racetrack right to the surface.
Track sweats. But only difference than us and it sweats oil.
We better get it some Old Spice.
Good idea.
Thursday, Bull Run comes to Speed. Our buddy Bill Goldberg takes 12 teams on a high-stakes road trip. And they'll have to make it through his challenges to collect the cash and prizes. Bull Run with, where is he? Bill Goldberg. Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern, only on Speed.
He's a car guy.
Oh, absolutely.
He's a car guy.
Big collector and restorer, mostly of Mopars, like those 440s and Hemis.
Got the big Hemis. Big man needs a big Hemi.
Jamie Mackin right in the middle of things there in the Crown Royal Fusion. Let's go to his garage and Matt.
Mike, he's turned in the 5th most completed lap so far during this final practice session. They made a shock change. He went out. He actually said the car was worse. Now it went from just being free on exit to free, more in yaw than he wanted through the entire corner. So they brought the car back, made another change, sent him back out to see if they can get a little closer into the window that he's looking for on this 26 machine. Steve?
Matt, they put a set of brand new tires on that 20 car of Joey Logano. They're going to back it up now and put it up on the scale. So far, everything looks straight on that 20 car.
They'll try to get him back out there. You know, one thing that I love looking at, you know I love looking at the weather, but I love looking at trends. And one thing that has changed about this Daytona 500 over the last few years is, remember, they moved the starting time later on in the day. So these guys, even if the sun is out beaming down tomorrow, they know this track is going to cool down because we're going to end this race pretty much in nighttime. And if you look at the last few years, the average temperature has been somewhere between high 60s and low 70s. Back in 03, it was 83 degrees of high. But do you know the hottest it's ever been at the start of the Daytona 500? 85 degrees in 1975, but how about 1967? It was 48 degrees when the green flag waved.
Wow. But as we've said for the last few years, yeah, you set your car up to make it run, make it handle in the sun and in the high 70s like it'll be tomorrow. But the nighttime is the right time. That's where the money is.
And I think that's why we have had some great finishes over the last few years. Yeah, we might dip down in the middle of this race, and these guys may try to just settle down a little bit and watch some laps unwind. But what they're doing, they're getting corked up for those last 20 or 25 laps when they know this racetrack is going to have ultimate grip. This 11 car, Denny Hamlin, he has run a bunch of laps in this practice session. Of course, they did not run yesterday, as we talked about, but he's run 33, working on 34 laps.
Well, we know everybody has their race engines in, I guess. Right. To get some laps on them. So we didn't practice yesterday, put a few miles on it today. I think it's cranking out some RPM.
But here's an interesting stat. Of the last 10 Daytona 500s, 7 of those 10 years, the driver leading with 10 laps to go did not go to victory lane.
And that's hard to believe, because when you think about the rule changes we've had from the old car to the car we got now, it's hard to believe it. I've always thought I'd want to be in front to take the white flag because I want to be able to block everybody. But I tell you what I think's changed that a lot, Mike. That yellow line.
Yes.
That yellow line has changed everything. If you can hover along that yellow line and keep somebody from getting under you, and you got a pretty good race car, can hang on. But
okay,
what's now a double yellow line?
Yeah, the no passing zone.
Final practice for tomorrow's 51st running of the Daytona 500. Want to be part of the excitement at the track? Go to the NASCAR section of speedtv.com. Select NASCAR on Speed. Send us your email. NASCAR on Speed, be there. Regan Smith just kissed the wall lightly.
Yeah, he was right up there. Next to
number 78.
Watch him, watch him, watch him.
I don't know if did he actually touch it?
I don't think he really did. I think he just skimmed along the edge of it.
We had a shot of the car coming into the garage after that, and our director Artie Kempner says yes.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
But I tell you, that's another neat story. Regan Smith, the 2008 Robestas Rookie of the Year, driving for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, had no DNFs in 2008. A team and a guy that thought they won the Talladega race in the fall, then were penalized and put back to 17th or 18th without a ride. Furniture Row Motorsports out of Denver, Colorado, they were going to throttle back to a limited schedule this year. There you see just a little bit of damage above the right rear tire, but that team plans on, unless they can get sponsorship, running a limited schedule. Another team that raced their way in on Thursday into this 500.
Now, you saw he didn't even buff the letters off the tires.
No,
he just got it with the quarter panel.
So he skimmed along it. Yeah, he just skimmed along there.
Just kissed it.
And Larry, I think he only, like all last year, even though he had some good runs, he only led 2 laps.
Yeah,
the whole year long. He thinks he thought he led 3.
Oh, he led more than that. But that's pretty impressive for a rookie to be running at the finish of every single race.
Yes, sir. That's usually job security.
We're used to seeing rookies that aren't running at the end of practice sometimes.
Good point. At least not the way they started.
Right.
Hamlin's going to run her out of fuel there.
And I'd say there's a good chance you may be absolutely right. We have predicted and calculated, as he gets a little bump from Travis Quapple in that 28 car down the back straightaway, that these cars can go about 42 to 46 laps on a tank of fuel.
He was trying to hurry Brian Vickers along right here.
And just look at the back of Vickers' car. I mean, it's off the ground. I mean, or it's up in the air because of him being up under the back of it like that. And that's what happens. You get the guy in front of you, just get him a little loose, get him up off the ground a little, and lighten up his rear tires. He's going to get out of your way one way or another.
And we talked a lot about this last year, racing this car full time. But if you go back to the old car that we used to race, you couldn't dare do that because the front bumper was probably 4 or 5 inches lower than the rear bumper. But by design, through NASCAR's part, with this new car off the ground, it's a perfect match, front bumper to rear bumper. And that was, again, by design, which kind of enhances and provokes a lot of this bump driving.
Yeah, well, you see the great big flat back bumper on these cars, and that lines up perfectly with the great big flat front bumper on these cars. So it does. It encourages you to use those flat bumpers to push the guy in front of you along. See how big and flat that is, and then the front bumper of the car goes right up against that. So the old snow plow that we used to have would just fit up under the back of the car in front of you and just lift you up and spin you out. Doesn't work that way so much anymore.
You know, I see that car sitting there, Marcos Ambrose in the 47 car. Looks like they may be done for the day. Right now, he is 32nd fastest. He's run 14 laps. He's been kind of quiet. He's had a very uneventful speed weeks. He'll be making his very first Daytona 500 start tomorrow.
Pretty heads-up guy. Drives pretty savvy. He's got some good experience in the Nationwide Series. I think he'll be fine.
Let's have a look at Greg Biffle coming off turn 2 last time by.
Well, if he's not in the grass, it'll be one of the rare occasions. He's been off the road a lot.
Yeah, there's nobody really around him right there, and the car just got loose with him. Just jumped out in the rear, and he gathered up, but he's gathering her up now and bringing her back to the garage area to Greg Irwin.
I think I heard him say this car drives pretty good when it's on the track. But he's been off-roading a lot.
In the last 10 years, only 2 Daytona 500s have been decided by a last lap pass, and they were the last 2 years.
Got about 18 minutes to go in this practice. Looks like Tony Stewart, he's going to get back out there in this car that he actually ran Saturday night in the Budweiser shootout. So they'll at least get 1 or 2 good runs with this car.
And one thing I can tell you about Daytona for sure, don't ever come down here unless you're prepared for worst case scenario, because it always happens to somebody. Use up a lot of cars, use up a lot of engines, but turn that around. Akil Yarborough flipped over here qualifying at 200 miles an hour, came back the next week and won the Daytona 500. It's happened to Dale Jarrett, as we mentioned earlier. He wrecked in practice. Todd Parrott and the crew fixed the car. He won the Daytona So it's not the end of the world.
No, when we won the Daytona 500 in 1992 with Davey Allison, that was a backup car. We had torn our car up in practice on Wednesday before the dual races. See Scott Speed in that 82 car. This is a backup car for him. We had the pleasure of sitting down and chatting with him a little bit yesterday, and this is the first laps he's making with this car. They elected not to run yesterday, get their race engine in this backup car, and he's out there churning some laps now, so he'll be making his first Daytona 500 start as well.
He is quite the character. What an interesting young man, and just fun to hang out with. Really fun, and if you really want to see what he's like, go Google Milk and Cereal. And,
Scott Speed, Milk and Cereal on YouTube.
On YouTube.
I showed that to my kids last night when they got here in Daytona.
What'd they say?
They played it about 100 times. It was something he and his buddy Colin Manning did.
See how bad this thing is behind me, but it's pretty good out front.
One day when they were bored, they just lip synced it and taped that act. And that video on YouTube has received over 75,000 hits from Formula One fans. You may see that on Fox one of these days because it's pretty cute. But
cute.
Now the kids are singing it. My wife can't get the song out of her head. It's taking on a life of its own.
Cereal, milk and cereal, cereal and milk, cereal and milk. Cheerios, I assume.
Speed's coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup final practice brought to you by Toyota. For the latest Toyota racing info, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward. By Verizon Wireless, call more people, use 0 minutes. Only on America's largest mobile-to-mobile calling family, Verizon Wireless. And by Old Spice, the official deodorant of NASCAR.
We still do not have that 14 car out on the racetrack, and we're down to about 12 minutes to go. Looks like he's backing out of the garage area now.
Steve Burns is with one of the fellows who has topped every speed chart of this practice.
Yeah, the 17 of Matt Kenseth looks great. He ran the most laps, 47, and best over 5 and 10 lap averages. How about from where you sit?
Well, you can't really read too much into lap times. Everybody's on different tires and different drafts and agendas and all that. So a lot happier with it today. I've been really unhappy with our DeWalt car ever since we got here, to be honest with you. We've never been able to get it very good. And today, both runs, it actually drove a lot better than what we had, a lot better than expected. And it seemed like it was a lot more competitive with the good cars out there.
Tony Stewart not very happy with the tires. And, of course, his teammate Ryan Newman had a problem. Everything okay with your tires?
Knock on wood, so far so good. So we haven't really had big problems yet.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. Hollow.
Good luck, Matt.
Thanks.
But that is a lot of laps and only 2 different runs.
Comes Tony Stewart. Got his old backup car. Here he comes.
Got a little wheel marker, too, little donut on the side of that one from the Budweiser shootout, and a little bit of primer here and there. And as noted, they'll have to change some of the decals. But he's good to go.
But you know, he was telling us the other day, and these were right now, these will be the 7 backup cars that will be going to the rear of the field. And yeah, we've already talked about Jamie McMurray and Michael Waltrip are both in backup cars, but their penalty was to the rear of the field in the dual races on Thursday. These will have to go to the rear of the field for the 500. But we were talking to Tony the other day, and of course he has Old Spice and Office Depot, and he said how great it is that even though they'll both be on the car as a primary for different races, that the PMS red is absolutely the same for both companies. So they don't have to repaint the race cars.
2 in your mirror cube car, single file right now. Got him.
I guess that deserves a little explanation because PMS means different things to different people. Pantone is a French company, and they develop the PMS, the Pantone matching system for advertising and color design, and each shade has a different number for that to duplicate that exact color. So everything that your company produces is the exact same color.
Yes.
And that's what it is.
There you go.
So, yep, they use the exact same shade of red.
Which is a great thing when you're talking about all the different race cars you have to put together.
There's a store in Salisbury, North Carolina I drive by that I could just never understand. It's PMS Guns. It's a gun store. It has nothing to do with the Pantone people. And it's now closed, by the way.
They don't go together, I can tell you that.
Meanwhile, back on the track.
And of course, Tony, here he is in the backup car. Now, this car's been raced, so he feels pretty comfortable with it, I'm sure. But what is he doing? I mean, he's got to get right in the middle of this crowd here and be sure this thing is able to handle good and keep up.
And what I see right now, Darrell, is that car is not sucking up to Martin Truex, who is several car lengths in front of him in that pack.
He might be a little apprehensive. You know, sometimes you just, even though you've been in that car, it was a week ago.
Here it goes.
You got to get comfortable.
Okay, now he's right there.
3 wide, you're at the bottom.
The other good thing about all these cars now, and particularly the ones with the Hendrick carbon fiber seat in them, is they're all the same. The seats are all the same. They just put their insert in there and get in and go. Don't have to come in and say we need to adjust the seat.
Well, that's another thing that let Kyle Busch just jump right over in Joey Logano's car yesterday, because they do the same thing. And I'll tell you a guy that I'm anxious to watch in this Daytona 500 tomorrow. He's actually had a great speed weeks, and that's A.J. Allmendinger in that 44 car for Richard Petty Motorsports. Finished 5th in the Budweiser shootout the other night. He, just like Scott Riggs, just like Jeremy Mayfield, and honestly, just like Tony Stewart, he had to race his way into the 500 in the dual races on Thursday, and that's exactly what he stepped up and accomplished.
And I got to tell you, he had his hands full of that car, too. I watched that thing in that qualifying race, and it was dipping and diving, but he was staying with it.
See Bill Elliott in the 21 car. Those guys, they've been fast all week long. Had a pretty scary situation in the dual race. The transmission locked up on him under caution going down the back straightaway, and he actually got into the outside wall pretty hard, but David Hyder and that group elected to fix that race car. So Bill will roll off 40th when the green flag flies tomorrow for the 500.
And Bill was coming around and just minded. He said, I'm happy here. I'm 2 wide. All of a sudden, the 11 car Hamlin makes it 3 wide. And Bill says, now, what'd you do that for? That's something of a piece.
Closing in on the final minutes of final practice for tomorrow's Daytona 500. Coverage begins with NASCAR race day right here on Speed, and then Daytona 500 coverage 2 p.m. on Fox.
You know, Mike, this was a point in time of Speed Weeks that honestly, as a crew chief for 18 years, that I always really look forward to. The preparation to come down here for Speed Weeks, even without the testing that we did not have this year. I mean, it starts well before the season leading into it even ends. And you just feel like, okay, we're ready to run this Daytona 500. Yeah, we may not be as good as we think we should be. We've got what we've got, but you know what? We're ready to race.
1959, 50 years ago. 59 cars started the Daytona 500. There were 10 different makes of cars in the field. Oldsmobile, Ford, Chevrolet, Pontiac. The Thunderbird was considered a separate make from the full-size Ford. Dodge Mercury and Studebaker. DeSoto. Who drove the Edsel? There was an Edsel in the first 500, 59 cars.
Oh.
And that was the race that they had the photo finish, and it took them, what, a couple of days to figure out actually who even won the race.
Paul Bass finished 46th in an Edsel and won $100.
$100. His teammates, Travis Kvapil, Bobby Labonte. Looks like they're done for the day.
You know, a Studebaker was a hot car at one time.
Very aerodynamic.
I mean, down here at Daytona particularly, I remember, I think it was Leroy Yarborough. I'm not sure if he ever won the Permatex 300, the Saturday race, but I know he sat on the pole a bunch of times.
There were 2 Studes in the field. Harold Smith finished 31st.
Well, you just saw it. The red and the black signifying all practice is over. Ready to take the green flag.
Sigh of relief.
The next time we see the green flag, it'll be for real.
Yes, it will. For big bucks.
$1.5 million to take home to the winner.
And now we're ready for the Great American Race. NASCAR Live is coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow on Fox.
Yes, we will.